They are specifically deciding to splinter the communities of common interest, as well as just blatantly say, we are going to dilute minority voices. So we know that the courts, ever since we've had a Voting Rights Act, have always found this state to be intentionally discriminatory. That is what they are going to do. So I need people of color to understand that the scheme of the Republicans has consistently been to make sure that they mute our voices so that they can go ahead and have an oversized say in this. So I fully anticipate that's exactly where they're going with this map. It's the only way to do it. We didn't understand how we got to the map that they gave us last time, because that state was grown by 95% people of color. They went out of their way to make sure that we got 0 new seats for people of color.
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will survive.
Amanda Edwards is here. Sheila Jackson Lee was a congresswoman originally from Queens, transplanted, went to Florida, and then ended up in Houston, and was in that seat for quite some time until she made transition. She passed away. Her daughter ended up in that seat in the 18th district, and now it looks like there won't be any representation. You're running for this seat. Give us the history of where we are right now, what could possibly happen.
Yes, this has been a very, very unusual turn of events that unfortunately has not hasn't bode well for the members and the residents that live in the 18th Congressional District. As you know, for those that don't have the history, this is the seat that was once filled by Barbara Jordan, by Mickey Leland, Craig Washington, Sheila Jackson Lee, Sylvester Turner, as well. And so we have had some very strong leaders that have come through the ranks of the 18th Congressional District as leaders. Unfortunately, though, we've also not been strangers to tragedy. So we lost Congresswoman Jackson Lee in July of 24. And so, of course, as you recall, she passed away after having a pancreatic cancer diagnosis. And so she passed on because of the timing of her death. I had just been in a primary, in the same primary race with her in the Democratic primary in March of 2024. She passed away just a few months after her death. Excuse me, she passed away a few months after the primary election. And so because of the timing of her passing, we didn't go back to the thousands of people who had just voted for me in that race and say, okay, those votes will count for this race. We actually had to, per state law, go to a slate of precinct chairs in the Democratic Party to then make the decision on who was going to replace her name on the ballot for the full next term in election cycle. And so that was a decision made by about 80 people. The first round, Congressman Turner and I were 1 vote apart. And the second round, we were 4 votes apart. So it was very, very close. But he ended up winning in that contest. And so he assumed the role in January. Her daughter did serve a period of a few weeks at the end of the term to finish out the term that she was in, that November, December timeframe. And then he began his service in January of this year. He passed away 7 weeks later. March 5th of 2025. And so again, the district was left without representation, but the state law in Texas allows the governor the full discretion as to whether to call a special election. And if he does call a special election, he gets the discretion as to when it will be held. So the earliest date available for that special election to have been called and held, and there's a special election going on right now with Arizona, right? And that particular member passed on after Congressman Turner, but they're having their special election now. But in this instance, the governor decided that he would wait to call the special election until November 4th of 2025. So why would somebody leave 800,000 people without a vote, without a voice, without a federal advocate for funding, you ask? Because there was something called a big, beautiful bill on the way. And I could have, if in place by that point, been that vote to block it, since it passed by a margin of 1 vote on the first round. 1 vote. So had we had that seat filled timely, it could have been blocked. That's $900 billion of cuts from Medicaid. We could have blocked that. The $300 billion in SNAP benefits that have been cut, we could have blocked that. The people who now won't have access to to as much money as they need for student loans for graduate school, we could have blocked that. And instead, we are playing politics with people's futures. We're playing politics with people's safety nets. We're playing politics with people's lives. And again, lacking compassion for people that we're supposed to be serving. So as if it could not get any worse, with this big, beautiful bill passing, the constituents having to wait all the time. And if you count up the time, just so you do the math, if you look at 24 and 25, Congressman passing away, Congressman Turner passing away, the delay in the vote, and then this special election taking place in November, which will amount to probably a runoff since there are 26 candidates in the race. I kid you not. If you count all of this time up, this district will have been without voting representation for almost 18 months.
Nearly a million people.
Taxation without representation to the fullest extent.
So what can
and
we
so
do?
Now we have learned this week, what we learned last week is that the Department of Justice has sent a letter down to our governor indicating that District 18, District 9, District 29, and District 33, 9 is represented by Congressman Al Green, 29 is represented by Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, and 33 is represented by Congressman Mark Feasey out of Dallas. And of course, 18 has no representation. So all 4 are on a hit list from the Department of Justice that says that they are racially gerrymandered districts, and therefore this is not a lawful engagement or practice. So our governor has called a special session of the state legislature. I am not making any of this up. He called a special session of the state legislature to begin on Monday, July 21st. That will then begin the redistricting mid-decade. Okay, we have not gotten a new census. There's been no new
districting
census.
goes according to the census every 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh,
no.
okay.
When Texas and in the Trump administration, we're gonna just redistrict when we want to. And so we're redistricting these 4 seats.
We got to go to a break. Can you stick around? Because you know, and I'm gonna say this: you're a Harvard-trained lawyer, you're a constitutional expert, like you know what's supposed to happen. This is not supposed to happen. Texas, one of the largest states in our union, has the most per capita gathering of Black folk than any other state in our union, is now in jeopardy of having the representation of those people dwindled down to just about nothing. And I think that's the goal. Amanda Edwards is here. She's running for that 18th district seat that was once held by Sheila Jackson Lee and the great Barbara Jordan. But that may go away, as you were saying, because there's a special session of the state legislature on Monday to redistrict. Walk us through, what does it mean to redistrict? Because that's supposed to happen every 10 years, like you said. What is happening? How does that work?
What is typical, Karen, is that you have a census that comes out, and because of the new census data that is released, you take into effect where there's been growth, where there ought to be different districts created, lines changed, and so forth. And so this is done by the state legislature. There is a process for this, and it happens every 10 years. Well, what has now happened is that there has been basically allegations of a legal issue that has been submitted by the Department of Justice, in which they're highlighting and flagging the 4 districts, 18, 9, 33, and 29 as having been racially gerrymandered. As you know, these areas and these communities are spaces and places where you've had to find ways and had to try to amplify those brown and Black voices that for decades were being suppressed due to discriminatory voting behavior and practices and lines. And so this is something that obviously has roots in civil rights. And of course, we have not gotten to a space and place of equity in our society. So there's the argument that these sorts of districts that are majority, minority, and so forth, they don't need to exist in perpetuity. And at some point that, time shall, you can't do that. And so there is the argument being made by the Department of Justice. And so in response, our governor is calling this special session to redistrict these districts, which could mean a number of things, none of which we have seen or know because there's been no release of any proposed maps. So no proposed plans, no schedule set forth yet for this special session that will begin on Monday. So a lot of people have been named to a committee, and yet and still there's not a lot of detail being made available to the public other than which districts are potentially going to be impacted. What could that mean? Could a district go away altogether? Sure, it could mean a lot of things, and we don't know. And if you base it on the pattern of behavior, the delay in calling the special election, just if you look at the pattern of behavior, we have cause to be very concerned that the voices of the 18th congressional district won't just have a delay in representation, that they may not have representation because there could be an intent to permanently silence these voices. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, the horrible aspect of this is that there is no one there in the district to stand up and fight. And so as a candidate, I'm speaking out. But of course, I am not the office holder. There is no voting member in the office. So to be on a list like that and targeted in this way, and when the residents, I've been campaigning, I've been out there doing the work in the community. When I say they are exhausted, they're frustrated, they're concerned, they're scared. They don't know it's always the question, well, what next? That's how they feel right now. And they felt that way when they first learned that they're looking at other states that had similar situation arise and they're getting their election. How come we don't have one for us? Then we finally find out we're getting a special election. It's going to be in November. So then what happens in the meantime? The big, beautiful bill gets to get passed and not in just, in a normal course, literally by a margin of 1 on its initial passage, passage from the House. And so you are looking at a district that has just been treated poorly and disrespected, to be honest with you, and continues to be subject to being on the chopping block. And, as they say, the adage is, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're what's on the menu. And literally, we are watching that play out as we speak.
What's the long game, Amanda? You obviously have studied law. You understand that this is not quote unquote normal. But as I said, they gave you a blueprint of what they were going to do. They're doing exactly what they said they were going to do, right? Mm-hmm. So how are you seeing this play out? Okay, let's say, for instance, that happens. What recourse do these folk have? Is there any?
We'll have to take, when you take these matters to court, because that's always happened. Whenever there's redistricting, there's lawsuits. Okay, that's just normal, par for the course. There's going to be litigation involved in this situation. And so the problem with these pieces of litigation, though, is that they're slow moving. And so you get a very complicated process in which sometimes you end up utilizing temporary lines, and it can get very squishy as to what do you do until that permanent litigation is resolved. And, this happened just a couple of years ago in terms of when there was the appropriate time for redistricting after the 2020 census had occurred. The 18th and the 9th were subject to redistricting activity. And in that case, there was litigation stemming from that, which has still not been resolved. And so you've gotten some shifting and changing and things of that nature that happens, but you don't ever know. It's not predictable what that has to look like. And so it can take on various shapes, forms. And so it's a very bad place to be in because it's unpredictable. We know people are going to, we know there'll be suits filed, but we don't know resolution of those lawsuits. The other thing that we do know is that although this will not affect the special election that will take place on November 4th of 2025, it will very likely affect the midterm election that will take place on March 3rd of 2026, which is only a few months after the special election. And so, like I know what's going on with the midterms. And so this could also have the effect of silencing Black and brown voices that may want to come back into the fold when it comes to the midterms because they're dissatisfied with what they have seen and how they feel and being targeted with the policies that we have seen come down the pipeline from this administration. So this is not just fortuitous in terms of its timing.
Oh, no. I feel like they have I feel like they've had a plan since the Civil War. This has been a plan.
Well, and we know that the president's plan, a lot of his plan is coming right out of Project 2025.
Yes, that's what
I'm saying. And we tried to tell the people.
But Amanda, Project 2025 has been going on for 100 years.
Mandates and conservative.
That's why it's 900 pages long. They've been adding to it, and then the dominoes had to fall. They had to have the state houses in certain key states, which they have now. If you look at the numbers in Texas, 88 Republicans against 62 Democrats. They're going to push through whatever they want. They have the numbers. House, they have the House federally. They have the Senate federally. They have the judiciary federally. Everything that they want to do, they can just push through. They have the numbers.
And that's what just happened. We just in Texas had a horrible fight with regard to public education and its funding. Now they have just passed the voucher system, taking $10,000 per kid away from the public schools to now go into this voucher system that would allow it to be in private schooling. Well, here's the kicker here. Number one, you're not going to find enough private schools at that level of cost, number one. So you're now going to have these people who think that this is going to benefit them be an added cost to them because they're going to have to come up with the rest of the money on their own. That's number one. Number two, now you're taking the money out of the public schools and underfunding them even more than they were. And then you combine that with what's happening at the federal level. When you're getting rid of funding, Title I funding for kids with disabilities. I mean, we are just going all the way off of the railing here in terms of taking care of kids, taking care of marginalized communities, making sure that they have voices, they have representation, they have the help and support. And all of this has happened in concert with this voucher that just got these school vouchers that got passed. Ask me how they got passed. Well, the first time the Governor Abbott tried to pass them in a special session last time around, there were Republicans that stood up against it and blocked it from happening. And so do you know what happened to those Republicans that stood up against the voucher system? They are long gone.
Yeah, they got primaried.
Each and every one of them he had primaried.
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We